So how you doing, folks? Back with another video. Today we have the Sega Master System 2 on the bench, but today we're going to be looking at a control pad. So this one has a bit of an issue. So let's fire up the Master System and we'll take a look at that. Okay. So left and right is fine. Punch, jump. It's not great. It's fine. It's working, but it's not great. But if I press up on the control pad, you can see he just runs to the left hand side of the screen. Right, left, and it's a bit all over the place. So there's obviously something up with the controller. The Sega Master System control pad is relatively simple. Now this isn't my control pad. Someone I know sent this to me for repair. So there possibly will need to be some cleanup on the inside, but if we take a look at the actual connector, a close-up, you can see that those pins look like they've been attacked. It appears to me like someone has cut a couple of millimeters off the actual head of the controller. Why they would have done this? Maybe to get it to fit in a control port that was just a bit shorter, maybe like an 8-bit micro or something like that. Doesn't make much sense. But with that said, the owner of the controller was good enough to send on one of these. You probably all know these. These are the cheap Chinese kind of clones of the Sega Mega Drive controller. And as you can see from this controller, it's not looking too smart on its own connection here. You can see that it's starting to fray at this end. So if we need the cable, we've got a spare cable. So, okay folks, let's get this open. So we've got 6 screws here that we need to undo. Okay, I can already see that these are quite rusted. So that's great. It's not a good sign. What I'll do with those screws is I'll pop them in a little container and spray them with the WD-40 and just leave them there for a while, then clean them off before we put them back in, but that should get rid of most of the rust. This is as simple as it gets, folks. Whoa, nothing. Okay, so it really is as simple as it gets, folks. Very simple, no active components. Just PCB traces and then the domes to connect the signals. So we can see that by connecting them here, we're connecting an active, it's active when you hit the button. It pulls the connection to ground and that reads as an input. Now Consoles Unleashed has done a really good pinout for the male connector on the console. So basically I'm just going to do the inverse of that and map it directly to the colors and the buttons on the Sega Master System. And once I have that done, we'll do the same for the clone Mega Drive pad. So as you can see, I've mapped out the corresponding pin, its button and its color. Big shout out to Consoles Unleashed. Always great resources for console modifications and repairs. He does some really awesome mod kits, and I'll leave a link to the pinout diagram, but also just to his homepage and his store in the description. I'm just going to whip apart this one, and we'll examine the exact same in here to see what color corresponds to what pin on the actual connector. As you can see, it has a glop top here. Now that's probably just a cheaper alternative to the multiplexer chip that was inside the original or more expensive kind of authentic Mega Drive control pads, even the Logic 3 ones. So the multiplexer was used so that they could have the extra buttons for select, start and the C button and still use the same connector. So they just multiplex the actual inputs. I'm not going to desolder this. I'm just going to cut it off and try and remove this piece of strain relief as well, because we won't need that. The way it's routed in the actual Master System controller, we won't be needing this. So as you can see, I've done the pinout for the clone Mega Drive control pad, and I've just marked down the colors. The way I did it was quite simple. You can see I've taped down the end of the cable here. I have in my other hand a probe ground and a capacitor leg just stuffed in there to pin 9. I know from beeping it out should be the white one. So if I just get the positive leg of the lead and touch it off there, there you go. So we know that's how I quickly went through and did them all. So here we are back with the original control pad circuit board. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my wire cutters and I'm going to cut it here. The reason for that being is that now I know, for example, that if I desolder the brown lead here and do them one at a time, I know that I put the yellow one in from the new cable. So I'll just go along, do them one at a time. It'll be a lot harder to get it wrong if I'm kind of color matching. So I remove the brown, put in the yellow, remove the red, put in the orange, remove the orange, put in the red. You get kind of what I'm going for here. So we have our wires soldered up. You may notice that there's 2 left over. Well, in the actual pinout, we can see that pin 5 is not connected and pin 7 is the light sensor. So this is used for the light gun and other accessories, so it's not connected. So I can just cut those wires up short, close to the actual main kind of insulation here. Try and keep them separated. But yeah, the idea is just to leave those guys floating. So cleaning the flux off, I'm going to try and clean it at a slight angle here so none of the flux goes back up here. So lastly, to get off kind of the very fine layer of kind of any oxides or anything that's built up on these button contacts, I'm going to get an eraser. Now this is a Mars plastic eraser from Stadler, so it shouldn't leave any residue. If you get some cheap erasers, they might leave a residue on the actual thing, but you know, a good eraser from an art store for kind of clean up and finishing, you know, artists and draftsmen would use, is perfect for this. So with that done, I'm literally just going to get final pass with some cotton buds and IPA just to get rid of any sediment from the eraser. The next thing we need to do is look at the actual rubber domes themselves. So again, I wouldn't use alcohol or anything on these because you may damage them. So I'm just going to take a sheet of paper, the one we wrote our Legend of the Keys on, and I'm just going to push down on the rubber and pull slightly. The idea being is we want to kind of remove any gunk that's built up there. You'll see it leave like a little black line on the paper. You don't want to overdo this, because this conductive material can be like taken completely off if you overdo it. Also, I had noticed that a little piece of plastic on the corner of the directional pad was coming off, so I kind of taped it roughly into place. Then using kind of a toothpick, I applied some super glue to the tape here and then kind of picked it off there and worked it into the rough area. So we'll let that dry as well. It's already kind of had maybe 10 minutes to dry there and is looking pretty solid. But these little kind of bits on the end are probably best to hold on to those if you want to have a good kind of action on the D-pad. So once that's fully dry, and the plastics have dried, we'll reassemble and test. So now that we have our controller back together, let's hook up our Sega Master System console and test it out. Okay, so let's test out the control pad. So jump, it's 1, 2, crouch works up. You see him pressing up and he's not moving left or right. So that seems to work. So I think we fixed it. So what we'll do briefly, we'll try Sonic the Hedgehog 2. So we've gone from one bad Sega Master System game to another. Neither of these games are great, to be honest with you. Sonic would be good. I think they just messed up this underground zone, Act 1. I don't think it should have been the first level at all. It's much too hard. Subsequent levels are a lot better. So down works. If I look up, that works. But yeah, if I get a flat space here, we look up, down, left, right. Yeah, our control pad is working. So that's excellent. So let me just flick this off and we'll wrap up. So folks, we have a working and cleaned Master System controller. Really simple controller, simple fix in the end, just to swap over the cables. As long as you take the time to get your multimeter out and beep out the connections and do a little map for yourself, you should be fine. So I'll have some more Sega Master System content coming up on the channel soon enough. I first need to kind of sort out some problems with the capture. You may have seen a vertical line in the capture. Again, that's just in my capture chain. It's something I need to fix. Driver updates, things like that. Sometimes problems like this sneak into your setup. So yeah, I'll troubleshoot that before the next video. But we'll be back with some more Sega Master System and maybe even some Mega Drive RGB mod content. So cool, folks. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll chat to you all again.